The second Charlie Kirk's security chief spoke up, the internet didn't just react, it locked up. One carefully worded statement about a report Erika refuses to release. And suddenly timelines felt like crime scenes, where nobody wanted to touch anything but everyone knew something was wrong. This wasn't gossip. This wasn't speculation dressed up as concern. This sounded like someone who was done playing quiet. There were no leaked PDFs, no manila folders waved dramatically in the air. Just a few words, delivered with the kind of frustration that makes people stop scrolling and start screenshotting. And once the phrase "won't release the report" hit the air, speculation didn't knock politely. It kicked the door in, wearing combat boots. People immediately started saying this made political drama look like reality TV filler. Others joked it felt like the opening scene of a Netflix expose where everyone later claims they knew something was off. Memes followed, but the laughter felt nervous, because jokes land differently when they're covering discomfort. One question kept echoing louder than the rest. If the report is harmless, why is it still hidden? And if the security chief is talking now, who decided silence was no longer safe? This didn't begin with a document leak or a dramatic reveal. It began with a pause that felt deliberate. For a long time, everything around this circle sounded polished and predictable, like talking points rehearsed until they lost all meaning. Then Charlie Kirk's security chief spoke, not loudly, not recklessly, but with the kind of restraint that makes people nervous. Because restraint suggests someone choosing words carefully, not guessing. The moment he referenced a report Erika refuses to release, the temperature changed, not because details were shared, but because none were. In the internet age, withheld information carries more weight than information itself. People don't panic when they know what's inside the box. They panic when they're told the box exists and they're not allowed to open it. Almost instantly, timelines filled with the same question, phrased 100 different ways. What report? Who commissioned it? And why is it being treated like it can't see daylight? Nobody needed answers to feel suspicious. Suspicion thrives in silence, and silence was suddenly everywhere. What stood out most was the tone. The security chief didn't sound speculative. He didn't sound like someone repeating rumors. He sounded irritated. The kind of irritation that shows up when someone's tired of pretending something isn't there. Online audiences treat irritation like authenticity, whether that's fair or not, and that perception lit the fuse. Old footage resurfaced immediately. Interviews where Erika spoke carefully were replayed with new skepticism. Moments that once felt uneventful suddenly looked rehearsed. The internet loves to rewrite the past when a new narrative appears. And this situation gave it the perfect excuse. Screenshots started circulating of comments people now claimed were signals. A delayed answer here, a vague statement there. None of it proved anything, but proof wasn't the point anymore. The point was pattern, and once people think they see a pattern, they stop looking for alternatives. Supporters pushed back quickly, arguing that not every internal report needs to be public. They pointed out that confidentiality exists for legitimate reasons. Those arguments were rational, which meant they struggled to survive in a moment driven by curiosity and distrust. Rational explanations rarely trend. Critics took a simpler route. If the report is harmless, release it. If it's being withheld, something must be wrong. That logic spread fast because it didn't require nuance. Online outrage prefers straight lines. Even when reality is complicated, the security chief's position made the moment feel heavier. This wasn't a random commentator. This was someone positioned close enough to sound informed but distant enough to speak indirectly. That middle ground is dangerous because it invites interpretation without confirmation. Why speak now? That question echoed everywhere. People speculated about pressure behind the scenes. Others suggested frustration finally bubbling over. A few believed it was a calculated nudge meant to force action without crossing a line. Every theory sounded plausible because none could be disproven. Erika's silence only intensified the spotlight. Silence in moments like this doesn't read as calm. It reads as strategy or hesitation, depending on the audience. Each hour without a response hardened opinions that hadn't been fully formed yet. Memes followed, as they always do, but even the humor felt tense. Jokes landed with an edge, like laughter covering discomfort. People compared the situation to the opening scene of a streaming expose where everyone later claims they felt something was off. The comparisons were exaggerated, but exaggeration keeps attention locked. What made this moment different from routine political noise was how little information it needed to spread. No names listed, no accusations spelled out, just the idea of a hidden report and the suggestion that someone didn't want it released. That was enough to keep feeds spinning. Comment sections turned into amateur investigations. People debated what kind of report it could be. Internal, external, preliminary, final. The guesses said more about audience fears than about facts. But fear fuels engagement better than clarity ever could. The longer the conversation went on, the more the report itself became symbolic. It stopped being about content and started representing transparency, control, and trust. Once something becomes symbolic, it's no longer judged on evidence. It's judged on feeling. Some tried to reframe the moment as overblown, arguing that a single comment doesn't equal a scandal. Those voices were quickly drowned out by the thrill of anticipation. The internet loves the idea that something big is being hidden. even when nothing has been proven. By the end of this phase, nothing concrete had been revealed. No documents surfaced. No official statements clarified anything. And yet, the impact was real. Reputations were being questioned. Motives were being assigned. All because one insider chose to speak carefully instead of staying silent. This wasn't exposure. It was implication. And implication is powerful because it invites the audience to do the work themselves. Once people feel involved in uncovering a story, they don't let go easily. The report hadn't been released. No facts had changed. But the atmosphere had, and in public narratives. Atmosphere often matters more than answers. Once that comment escaped its original context and hit the timeline, the story didn't spread calmly. It fractured. Different versions of the same moment raced across platforms, each one louder and more confident than the last. Twitter turned into a courtroom with no judge. Instagram became a rumor relay. YouTube flipped into emergency broadcast mode. Even though nobody could point to a single verified detail, reaction channels smelled suspense instantly. Thumbnails darkened, titles sharpened, everyone claimed they had inside context, which somehow always sounded like the same guess recycled with a different dramatic pause. Calm analysis got buried under urgency. The algorithm doesn't reward patience, it rewards panic. And panic was trending hard. Memes followed. Because humor is how the internet handles discomfort it doesn't know how to process. People joke that this felt like the first episode of a political Netflix expose where the real scandal doesn't even drop until episode 4. Others said it made reality TV look overproduced and safe. The jokes landed, but they landed nervously. Public opinion split almost instantly. One side argued this was nothing more than speculation inflated by boredom. The other side insisted the signs were obvious. Why mention a report at all if there's nothing in it? Why hint instead of clarify? Why let the silence grow? Both sides argued with absolute confidence, and neither side had evidence. Influencers and podcasters entered the chat carefully, then aggressively. Some teased upcoming episodes, promising context without offering specifics. Others hinted they'd heard things privately they couldn't repeat. Vague language became a strategy. If you never say anything concrete, nobody can fact-check you. Screenshots started circulating like proof, even though they proved nothing. Old quotes were pulled out of context. Past statements were reread with suspicion. People built long threads connecting dots that may not have been connected at all. But presentation mattered more than accuracy, and these threads looked convincing enough to keep people scrolling. The security chief's silence after speaking became part of the story too. Every hour without clarification added tension. People debated whether he'd said too much or exactly what he meant to say. In online culture, silence after a hint feels louder than the hint itself. Erika's continued refusal to release the report became the centerpiece of every argument. Supporters framed it as responsible restraint. Critics framed it as confirmation. Something was being hidden. The report itself turned into a blank screen everyone projected their fears onto. Comparisons escalated fast. People dragged in historical cover-ups, corporate scandals, and political controversies, claiming this followed the same pattern. Others argued those comparisons were reckless. But restraint doesn't trend. Big analogies do. Comment sections became speculative workshops. People debated what kind of report it could be and what it might contain. Internal findings, external reviews, preliminary drafts, final conclusions. None of it was grounded in facts, but it kept the conversation alive. What made the situation especially volatile was how confidence replaced curiosity. Early questions turned into statements. If it were harmless, it would be public, became an accepted truth. Repetition gave speculation the illusion of fact. Attempts to calm things down only fed the fire. Saying this is being overblown sent people back to rewatch clips. Claiming nothing's there made the mystery feel deeper. In viral cycles, denial often sounds like confirmation to people already suspicious. Even neutral observers got pulled in, not because they believed the allegations, but because the tension itself was addictive. Suspense doesn't require proof, it requires momentum. And momentum was everywhere. The story stopped being about one comment and started being about expectation. People waited for the next shoe to drop. Would there be a statement? A release? A leak? An interview? The waiting became entertainment. By the end of this phase, the narrative had fully escaped its origin. It wasn't about what the security chief said anymore. It was about what people believed his words implied. An implication is harder to fight than accusation. Nothing concrete had surfaced. No report, no confirmation, no denial. And yet the damage was already happening in real time. Perception was shifting. Trust was wobbling. Lines were being drawn. At this point, the internet wasn't asking for facts. It was demanding resolution. And when millions demand resolution, silence stops being neutral and starts feeling like a choice. By the time the buzz shifted from curiosity to conviction, the consequences were already taking shape. This story didn't need a document to move forward anymore. The reaction became the evidence. People weren't asking what the report said. They were deciding what its absence meant. And that interpretation hardened fast. Erika's public image absorbed the pressure first. Supporters framed her refusal to release the report as discipline, restraint, and responsibility. Critics painted it as avoidance wrapped in procedure. Once the internet splits on motive, nuance evaporates. Every action becomes proof for whichever side someone already chose. The security chief's words kept echoing, not because they were detailed, but because they weren't. That ambiguity turned him into a reference point. To some, he looked fed up and honest. To others, reckless and vague. Either way, his comment became the hinge the entire narrative swung on. Silence started doing the heavy lifting. Each day without a release, without a statement, without clarification, felt like another chapter written by assumption. Silence isn't empty online. It's interpreted, screenshotted, debated, and judged until it becomes something else entirely. Relationships around the situation quietly recalibrated. Allies stayed quiet. Commentators softened language. People who might have chimed in chose distance instead. When a controversy turns radioactive, proximity alone can feel risky. Absence becomes a form of self-preservation. The tone across platforms cooled from frenzy into verdicts. Early questions turned into settled opinions. Comment sections stopped asking why and started declaring this is why. That's when narratives stop being flexible and start becoming permanent. Professional implications crept in without fanfare. Viewers speculated about credibility, leadership, and trust. Critics questioned judgment. Supporters worried about how much damage implication alone could cause. Viral stories don't stay in feeds. They travel into meetings, decisions, and perceptions that never trend publicly. Attempts to defuse the situation only amplified it. Saying there's nothing to see here sent people back to the clip. Calling it misinterpreted invited in online culture, minimizing often sounds like confirmation to audiences already suspicious. The report itself became a symbol rather than a document. It stopped being about content and started representing transparency versus control. Once something becomes symbolic, facts struggle to compete with feeling. Feeling moves faster and sticks longer. Comparisons kept coming. People said this felt like a slow burn expo stretched across time. Others compared it to a locked vault. Everyone's convinced contains something explosive, even if nobody's seen inside. Exaggeration thrived because certainty didn't exist. What got lost was the simplest truth. Nothing new had been released. No evidence surfaced, no claims were proven, and yet the impact was real. Reputations shifted, trust wavered, expectations formed, all without a single page changing hands. As days passed, the story didn't disappear. It settled into context. Any mention of the names involved now carried this tension with it, like a footnote nobody could ignore. The absence of the report became part of the identity of the story itself. The internet's role in all of this became impossible to ignore. We don't wait for answers anymore. We fill gaps with belief, then defend those beliefs as if they were facts. Momentum replaces verification. Anticipation replaces evidence. Now everyone waits for resolution, but resolution might not look like a dramatic reveal. It could be a statement that says little, a release that answers nothing, or continued silence that lets the story calcify even further. Once expectations are set, any outcome disappoints someone. That's the real aftermath here, not a bombshell, but the realization that implication alone can cause fallout. A single comment, delivered with restraint, can ripple outward until it reshapes perception completely. This wasn't closure, it was a pause charged with expectation. And in internet culture, pauses are never neutral. They're countdowns where everyone's already decided what comes next, whether the report ever sees daylight or not. The damage and debate have already happened. The conversation moved on from facts to faith in a narrative. And once that happens, truth becomes just another opinion competing for attention. The locked room stays locked, the noise stays loud, and the internet keeps listening for footsteps on the other side of the door, convinced that whenever it opens, everyone will say they knew it all along. And this is exactly how modern scandals refuse to die quietly. No leaked files, no dramatic press conference, just a few carefully chosen words, a locked report, and enough silence to let the internet do what it does best. Assume the worst and refresh endlessly. Today, it's a hidden report. Tomorrow, it's side comments, half answers, or someone slipping up when they thought the mic was off. If you're waiting for this to fade away, you're already behind the curve. If this breakdown had you leaning closer to the screen, smash that like button like it owes you money and just tried to ghost the bill. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Because around here, secrets don't stay secret and silence always means something. This channel exists for the moments when everyone says nothing's happening. Right before everything happens. Drop your real thoughts in the comments. Is this responsible restraint? Or does refusing to release the report only make it louder? Did the security chief say too much? Or just enough to force the issue? And at what point does silence stop being strategic and start being suspicious? Don't play it safe. Say what everyone's thinking but pretending not to. Turn on notifications. Because when narratives flip overnight, we're already watching. While other channels wait for official statements, we break down tone, timing, and the gaps nobody wants to explain. No soft takes, no tiptoeing, Just sharp analysis and uncomfortable questions. If a story feels off, we dig into why. If a report stays locked, we ask who benefits. Stay alert, stay curious, and stay watching. Because the loudest stories usually start with someone refusing to talk. This is Viral Trek, where silence is never accidental, and every pause tells a story.